Привit, I'm Chuck Olenek, a Ukrainian-American. I'm baptized with the name Yaroslav. That happens to be the name I use in the Society for Creative Anachronism, where I'm known as Yaroslav the Persistent or Yari. A few years ago, I decided to put together a YouTube channel because I was a history teacher and I wanted to geek out and share my knowledge of things or my research on stuff. And about 2 years ago, I started sharing the Slavic stuff because, after all, my persona is Slavic, the basic framework for my household is Slavic, and I noticed that there are more people doing this within the society. So I figured, why not share the information? And the videos aren't intended to be the authoritative thing, although that'd be really cool if people thought I was an authority, but a starting point. So, in the history end, I'm covering right now the Mongol invasions. All right, and basically the death of Kievan Rus. And story-wise, well, I've been covering folk tales like about the Bogatiri, the heroes. And it's pretty hard to put these things in chronological order. The history part, yes. The folktale stuff, no. And you might think that you can rely on internal details to keep the story straight. You know, like putting together the stories in chronological order, you know, in the Conan series. No, it doesn't really work that way because there's not really any consistency. A lot of these folktales were told by, as Ukrainians would do it, these would be kobzari, blind minstrels, who wandered from town to town and from village to village and told their tales. So you're not really going to see a lot of consistency. And you might notice certain details like, oh, this main character dies at the end of this story, or he turns to stone. Oh, that must be the last story. No, because there's a whole bunch of different people telling these stories. And you might notice there's similarities where there might be a story. Oh, I've heard this story. Except by the time you get to the end of it, the end is vastly different from what you heard previously. That's pretty common too. So there's something like, just about the Bogatiri, like 600 different tales that have been recorded. So you might be hearing something going, wait a minute, there's the taunting of an evil character, and there's counter taunting, and then finally it ends up in the duel, and then the big bad person dies. And you're, well, wait a minute, Ilya Muromets is doing that? But I thought Alyosha Popovich did that to the evil Tugarin. And you know, you wouldn't be wrong. So, another reason that you're going to run into these things is, oh, a lot of these characters are, like with the Bogatiri, are interchangeable. Conan is pretty much the same guy as King Kull of Atlantis, is pretty much the same guy as Bran McMorn. You know, there's just little bits of ethnicity. Oh yeah, Cormac McCart. And it's like working with the Conan stories of, oh, you find a story about Bran McMorn, you change some details. It's a Conan story now. All right? So you'll see things like, you know, that sort of similarity of tales between the different characters. Also, there's going to be some themes that reoccur. Volodymyr, Prince Volodymyr Brightsun, or Prince Volodymyr Redsun, who rules in Royal Kiev Town, he's a jerk. In almost every story, he's portrayed as a jerk. And he and Ilya Muromets, the mightiest of the Bogatiri, they will inevitably have some sort of argument about something, and Ilya gets cast in a dungeon, and then what will end up happening is there will be some horde from the steppes that threatens Royal Kiev Town, and often Volodymyr is ready to cave in to the demands and whatever you guys want. And Ilya will be released from the dungeon, and he goes out and he stomps the villains into the ground. And then, Volodymyr is grateful and he rules in peace for a while. Yay. All right. Well, in this particular Skazka or Kazka, and it depends. If you're doing the Russian thing, it's Skazka. If you're doing the Ukrainian thing, it's Kazka. Basically, it's a tale. All right. The big bad in this one is Batu Khan, who burned Kiev in 1240. But in a Skazka or Kazka, why let historical details get in the way of a good story? So, with that, who will tell us of the things of old, and of the things that have been? Of that Ilya, of Ilya of Ilya Muromets, the son of Ivan. Batu Khan, thinking wolfish thoughts, dreamt of conquering royal Kiev town, and had heard that Prince Volodymyr Bright's sons Bogatiri had deserted him. No longer could they tolerate his temper, his fits of rage. And Batu Khan called upon his slaves and his warriors true. Hear me, dogs of the steppe. Fetch me the skull of Ilya of Murom, that I may fashion a cup from which to drink my green wine. These warriors, these dogs of the steppe, they obediently sought the Bogatyr, but quailed in fear, for the warrior had vowed to scythe them down like so much wheat at the spas, the harvest, and this they told to their Batu Khan. Batu swore, but the power of the Rus is gone. Royal Kiev town is but an empty shell. Seize this Ilya and bring him to me. And this the warriors did, bringing Ilya trussed up and seemingly weak. Not with strength, but with cunning, Batu sought to bring Ilya to heel. Look you, Ilya, look how your prince has treated you, the injustices he has heaped upon you. Join me, become my right hand, serve me and no one else, and you will have honor here. But Ilya cried out, You mongrel Batu, Pui! You cannot buy Bogatiri with gold, we're Russian. We serve until the earth takes our bones. I will fight you until you and all of your horde are driven from this, our land. In his rage, Batu commanded that Ilya be taken to the fields of Kulikovo, and there to have his tempestuous head struck from his shoulders. But on the fields of Kulikovo, Ilya at last had had enough. His heart was filled with rage. His thews cracked the chains, which fell to the earth. Ilya smiled at his captors, and taking up the block of aspen, which was to have been the headsman's block, to chop off his tempestuous head from his shoulders, he began to mow down his captors like so much wheat, just as he had vowed to scythe them down. They fell before the aspen block, and he used the body of another dog of the steppe. He was the storm upon the fields of Kulikovo, striking down what stood before him. When Ilya cast aside the Tatar's lifeless and broken body, he saw that the fields of Kulikovo were full of Bogatiri coming to join him. They had heeded the call of Ilya. Dobrynya Nikitich, Kirilo the Tanner, Alyosha Popovich, all the warriors, all the Bogatiri had gathered on the field of Kulikovo, and together they drew their blades, which glittered like stars, and drove off the horde like rats. The dogs of the steppes were routed. And Volodymyr ruled in royal Kiev town. For a season or two, the people enjoyed fair weather and peace and joy. But those dogs of the steppes would gather once again. It was at the feast I heard this tale. There it was, I drank mead ale. Though it flowed down my beard, my mouth stayed dry, for never a drop passed my lips, swear I.